Am I the asshole for letting my child call my best friend dad/mom? My 30 relationship with my partner, 29, has been rocky since our son Oliver was born 2 years ago. We got pregnant a few months after we got married, and things were fine up until Oliver's delivery. I assume it was postpartum depression. They never sought out a specific diagnosis, but after our child was born, it was like they just couldn't care less about our child. We hadn't planned to have children so early into our marriage, and it was scary. But I can't describe to you the all-encompassing love that comes with being a parent. The fear was worth it for me. It still is and always will be. Throughout our child's life, but especially the first year, I was essentially acting as a single parent. The only help I had, and I don't mean for that to sound diminishing because this person is a godsend, was my best friend, 33. The plan was for our child to be breastfed, but my partner had no interest in it after our child was born. I was the one changing diapers and mixing up formula for bottles and being in the house we shared. It felt so oppressive. Like the joys of bonding with my child were being sucked out of me because of the energy there. So I would take my child to my best friend's house. I don't want to ramble on for too long, but there have been exactly 0 times in life where my best friend hasn't shown up for me. I've known them since I was 19 and can safely say that after all that time. But this is the most wonderful thing they've given me. I could sleep soundly knowing my child would be taken care of. I had a place of refuge. They were so good with my child and were my shoulder to cry on. I don't think I'll ever be able to repay them, but I'm definitely trying every single day. Things with my partner have kind of started to look up, but recent events have sent us in a huge downward spiral. Our child was having some speech delays, but they've been really picking things up as their 3rd birthday nears. They've babbled dada/mama towards my best friend and I for a while now, but dada/mama has since been added to their vocabulary, and that is used to refer to us both. I have never corrected my child. I have checked in with my best friend to make sure they were fine, and they said they were honored to be bestowed with such a title. My partner got to hear this recently when I was FaceTiming with my best friend, and they basically went ballistic. As much as I hate to admit it, I did say they were more of a parent than they have been, which, while true, is hurtful. I need outside opinions on this. Am I the asshole for allowing my child to call my friend dad/mom?
I'm going to go with yes.
Okay. And why?
Well, I think that there's a lot going on there, and they should be speaking to their partner about everything that they're going through. I just think that there needs to be more. It's understandable to be upset and to want your partner to be more involved in your child's life. I don't think that's the right way to go about it. Even if the friend is really, really there for the child, that's amazing. But if I was in that situation, that would suck. Especially like maybe I was bringing home all the money and like I really wanted to be there, but like I also knew that I was the main provider and I wanted to be able to support them, and it sucked for me, you know. And I also just watched a TV series recently. I won't give away too much, but it's called From Scratch.
So good.
Yeah, it's so good. And I just saw the pain in one of the couple's relationships about having to work and not being able to be there with the child. And then there was just so much pain on both sides. You know, the woman, she didn't want to be working. She wanted to be there with her child. And then the husband genuinely wanted to be working and with the child, both. But like they both had so much pain. And so I think that if they were to, instead of have a conversation together and all of a sudden she comes home and has her husband having somebody else call them by, I think there's better ways to handle it.
Yeah. It feels, does it feel a little familiar to you?
Yeah, it does.
I know. I kind of picked it. This is a hard one to kind of
It does
take
feel
the gender
familiar.
away.
Yeah. Well, it feels familiar to me because of you.
I was going to talk about myself.
Yeah, sorry. I won't steal your thunder.
No.
No, I really won't.
Well, and it is interesting, right? Because for those of you that don't know, my dad, Jerry, is not my bio dad.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of adopted me based on this exact situation. So like my mom and Jerry were friends. They lived together. They kind of were trying to date, but like it's messy, like life is. But he was so involved, and I didn't really have a relationship with my bio dad that I started calling him dad.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom was like, well, what do we do about this? Like, And so he adopted me. And then it's really interesting because my little brother, while he has a different bio dad, Jerry would come and pick me up and take me to like go to the zoo or go like do whatever a dad-daughter relationship entails. And Taylor, my little brother, would just sit there banging on the window crying.
Mm-hmm.
And Jerry was like, I'm not doing this to this kid. So soon enough, Taylor started coming with too. And so Taylor's also Jerry's son.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because despite having that, I think OP is still the asshole.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I really questioned myself with this because I'm like, well, this is what you had.
Mm-hmm.
But something that's different, than my circumstances, like this other parent is still in the picture.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
This other parent doesn't sound like they're unhealthy and like not involved. It just sounds like maybe they're battling with postpartum depression, which for those of you that don't know, like postpartum depression, like usually lasts months, but if it's untreated, it can last years. Some people that give birth have postpartum depression for years. And it's rare. I don't remember the exact percentage. It's really rare. I think it's like 5%, 6%, but it happens. And it's like, we know that they didn't seek a diagnosis. So there's something going on, but it just feels like this person is taking advantage of their friend and almost using their friend as a surrogate parent versus really addressing the underlying problem with their partner.
Yeah, that was really well said. And actually, I didn't even think about that comparison. And
isn't that crazy?
It kind of blew my mind because whenever I've known that story, obviously, and I never for a second thought there was anything slightly wrong with that story. Do you know what I'm saying? And I still don't.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it is a different situation. Like you said, this is a situation where the two parents are both still very much involved. And they're still together, correct? Like, okay. Yeah. So it's like when you operate like
they're married.
that.
Yeah, they're married.
When you operate like that, you should move together as a unit as much as possible by having as much conversations. When the two parents are not together, then it's a different story, in my opinion. Obviously, still communicate as much as you can, but if one of the parents is not involved, then it's kind of like,
I know, it is interesting. I feel really weird about like my personal story and then like having this like opposite take. It almost makes me, but I'm like, it is different.
It is so different.
No, it's so different.
But I'm like, am I a cherry picker?
No, you're not. No, you're not.
I don't think
this
so.
is so different.
Yeah.
This is so situational. Like that was your dad. Like the title dad and mom runs further than biological. Like it's relationship based. Like people, I mean, I grew up in a house of divorce, like you have stepmoms, you have stepdads. Like the title dad, the title mom is deeper than just blood. It's the relationship that you have. And like in your case is a perfect example of that. And so I think it's so different because in the story that we're reading, the other OP's partner is still in the picture and sounds like they would like to play a role because they're livid about the fact that their baby is calling the friend a title that signifies mom or dad.
Well, and the friend even recognized that too.
Yeah. Right.
They were like, I'm honored to be bestowed that title.
It is a heavy title. It is a heavy title that shouldn't be given away loosely. But like the difference here is Jerry went on to adopt you. He is your dad. This is not the case. This other friend, OP's friend, does, as far as we know, is not adopting this child. He's not.
No.
She is not stepping in. They is not stepping in as the second parent.
Yeah.
As far as we know based on the story, right? So to be given that title, in my opinion, again, coming from the perspective of a woman who has never been a parent, I feel like that's confusing for the child. Again, different from you because that was your dad who was like the most available person to you and played that role. In this case, whether it's mom or dad, this person has two parents that occupy that role currently. To have this third person now be a mom or dad is a little bit confusing, in my opinion, right? Like they're going to grow up having 3 parental figures, 2 of which share the same title.
Yeah, and I don't know. It would be interesting because I think there were comments on the other story we had that was really similar to this.
Yeah.
And I think some of the other comments were like, you know, this is great for a child to like have other like bonds and stuff like that. But I think for me, and something that like kind of I correlate with both stories is like I think it's easy to just like be like, oh no, that's not daddy or mommy. That's uncle or auntie.
Yeah. That's exactly my thought.
That's Uncle Matthew.
There's so many names.
Yeah. Like there's so many other solutions.
Yeah.
But I think for me, something that just like, I'm happy that they have a really close friend that they can rely on because obviously it's really challenging when your partner is going through mental health issues, and to not feel so alone, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But I just don't like how both of these stories, and this is my feeling on it, it just feels like they're almost taking advantage of their friends and they're using their friend in such a surrogate parent role.
Well, actually, so something I was thinking too, do you guys think that there's any possibility that the friend has more like
an intimate relationship?
Or do you think there's no chance?
So that's actually interesting you bring that up. Lauren did not watch the episode. I strictly told her like not to watch the last episode. Ale and I did. It is interesting you bring that up because that's something we kind of like hinted at. And I more so hinted at it because it's kind of like a running joke now with Reddit. And it's kind of like, oh, once you're part of an inside joke, you like feel the need to bring it up. And it's because of a story about like a guy who actually did develop feelings for his friend, or like didn't even recognize his feelings, but then like crossed boundaries with his wife and realized he had feelings.
Okay.
And so we kind of hinted at that with the last one. We're like, maybe there's, you know, something more going on there. And people went so far as to call us homophobic. Which, first and foremost, if you think that about me or anyone sitting on these lovely couches and chair, please leave. Because
literally,
I'm
sorry. Like, you don't know us at all.
Do you
or
think,
this podcast.
Well, no, you should know us well enough by now.
Right. That's my point.
You've been in it with us for 93 fucking episodes. Do you think I would continuously pick stories that highlight trans people, that highlight gay couples, that highlight polyamorous relationships? Are you fucking kidding me? You're going to come at me and call me homophobic? Touch some grass.
Touch grass.
Oh my God.
And I say that in the most respectful way.
Respectfully.
Like,
Legos.
you know
Fall on
me.
them.
You know me.
Yeah. I think the good thing though is that
I'm sweating over here.
that was great. I love that. I feel like that needed to come out eventually. I'm glad that we were all here together.
Is
for
there
that.
a question now? Are we questioning things?
Are we clear?
Are we clear?
Yeah, no, I think what's frustrating is anytime that it's like totally fine to people don't agree with everyone. Absolutely. Like that's totally great.
We're never going to agree. Come on.
Of course.
But labeling people with such like
harsh names.
untrue things are just like that's where it's just not like cool.
Yeah.
Well, you also have to you also have to realize like I'm doing this full time now. Like I'm podcasting.
Right.
But the other 2 people on these couches have full-time jobs.
Well, just kidding. We both had some rough days at work.
Let me just bring up work. But you need, like, it is kind of the thing. And like, you guys are taking a risk to come on this show.
Yeah.
And if it ever gets to a point where people are slandering you online, you guys are going to have to quit. Like, that's the reality we face.
For sure.
And so we all like, it's the internet and we can all say whatever the fuck we want on the internet. But just keep that in mind when you're writing these comments. Like, we live in a very different time, and like cancel culture is a very prevalent thing.
But I do think that there are a lot of people, more than not, that do know us and do know our hearts.
They love us.
And
I love you.
and do believe in our virtues and our moral and our character. So I don't want to give those
No, we're giving them
the
too much
minority
airtime.
too much airtime because it's super negative and honestly it doesn't deserve any more energy. We've said what we needed to say. Anyone who knows us and knows this podcast would know that our intentions are never to come off a certain type of way that's disrespectful or inconsiderate. So anyway, I think we should just move on because
Let's do it. So the top comment on this original post, which we do have an update actually. So the top comment is, I think you are going to get lambasted for this one. I'm going with not the asshole for me. However, I have been hospitalized previously for depression, and I think it's amazing my now wife stayed. Shit gets rough out there, but everyone gets to be happy. That includes you. Soft toss on ask yourself if you are in love with your friend. Seems like you act as a couple. No judgment, but leave if that's what you want. And they go, edit. Wow, surprised people are super upset about asking someone to think about their feelings. Also, commenters try to call out your own bias. I am a queer male who happened to fall in love with a woman and have beautiful children. I don't think I can read the rest. It'll give it too much away.
I am actually not sure what the word lambasted means.
You know, it's come up once before on a podcast and I didn't even know how to say it the last time.
The context makes me think it's like you're going to get split reviews.
Criticized harshly.
Oh, okay. So it's interesting. One of the questions that came up in my mind that we cannot answer, but just something that I think is a relevant detail that would help to kind of give an analysis is third party friend, is that title the same title as OP's partner? Do you see what I'm saying? Because I think that makes a difference.
Where it's a direct replacement.
Right.
Mm-hmm. That would,
I mean,
definitely.
It doesn't change my answer per se, because regardless, I think it presents a dynamic situation.
Yeah.
But if it's the same title, which I would venture to assume it is, based on the very emotionally charged reaction that OP describes, then I can see why it's a little bit more of almost like a direct attack, right?
It definitely would feel like more of a twisting of the knife.
Right.
Well, I also have a parallel too. I live with somebody who has a dog. And because of that, and I love the dog, I've started taking care of the dog like almost like equally as much. And so sometimes I'll be on walks with a dog and somebody will be like, oh, like the dog's mom, something like that. And I'll correct them. I'll be like, no, I'm actually the dog's auntie. You know what I mean? Just out of respect for the fact that I'm not the dog's mom.
Yeah.
and it's not, and that wouldn't be a big deal.
A dog.
But that's my point.
No,
It's like,
I get it. I get it. But her point is the fact that she would even give that much respect to a dog.
For a dog.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like, I think, and I also, another example too, is that I think this happened, don't quote me because I could be wrong, but like back when my sister first had her baby, my mom was helping out a lot. And I'm pretty sure there was one point where my niece said like mama to
Your mom.
her grandma. Yeah, my mom. And that was just like really like triggering. And at the time I was kind of like, oh, I get it, but like not, not fully because I was younger. But it makes more sense to me now. It's like that is a title that people really honor. And so it's like to find out that that's been being used like behind your back would be not feel good. And I'm sure, and if it was a different situation where it was like, I don't know, maybe if the person was more involved in this conversation, then maybe it wouldn't feel so triggering. But the fact that it was kind of like all happening behind their back and then they found out by like happen chance, like it's just, that would not feel good. I don't think.
No.
I agree. And again, like I don't have kids, so it's hard for me to really evaluate it. But I think about if I were a mom, I think that's such a big responsibility and such a big title. Like if my child was calling someone else a mom, even if it was my mom, I think I'd be upset.
Yeah.
I think I wouldn't like that.
I know.
Because I'm their mom. Like
it does feel,
especially when I'm like alive and well.
yeah,
like I'm here.
It's a slap in the face almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's how I would feel about it too. For the update, I never thought I'd be back here with an update this soon or that this would be the update. I came home Thursday with a plan to talk to my partner. I texted them in advance so I was able to jump right in when I arrived. As suggested to me in the comments of the original post, I was vulnerable. I told them I was feeling exhausted and worn down. I said frustration had built up with them being so uninvolved. I said I wanted to see real, major change in the way they act with our child within the next 2 months, or an ultimatum of getting them help / divorce would be given. I also made it clear that if they wanted to get help now and not wait those 2 months, that was also acceptable. I would assist them however they needed, but I wanted to see some initiative being taken for our child. At first, I was met with anger. Eventually, we were able to have a genuine conversation where they admitted they didn't feel very maternal / paternal at all. They felt I had pushed them way too hard to have a child when they got pregnant, and they often wonder what our life would be like had they made a different choice. Obviously, this was all hard for me to hear. Resentment was building up on both sides, but did it have to build for nearly 3 years? I can't help but feel like it was mostly their responsibility to bring up this conversation. My frustration was over their treatment of our child. Their frustration was over us having a child at all. I can't even fathom a world without our child in it, while they were pondering what our life would look like if they never existed.
Yeah. This is deep.
Yeah.
It's been a few days since the conversation, and I'm still feeling a lot. I feel sad for them. I'm very angry for my child, and that the last 3 years could have looked different / saved us from so much pain and exhaustion and negative emotion. It doesn't feel fair. They and I are going to start the divorce process soon. I'm hoping that it will remain civil. I called my parents to update them on the situation. They've been unconditionally supportive of me, and we're ready to jump into action mode to help. They will financially support us for the time being and offered us a place to stay. My friend and I discussed it, and we don't think that's a viable option. My child is already going through a big life change, so taking them out of state to a house they're unfamiliar with would be harmful. It would also complicate things during the divorce. We're going to move in with my best friend. On top of all of the practical reasons why it makes sense, my friend expressed that they would hate for us to be so far from them, / that anywhere they are would always be home for my child and I. We still have a lot of things to pack, but we've been here since that conversation. My child was already used to life here, so the transition has been smooth. I have a lot of emotions to work through and plan on starting therapy soon. There is an edit, which I feel like I might as well read before we get carried away. The mentions of coercion and force are ridiculous. My partner has never said outright that they didn't want a child. In fact, we had conversations prior to marriage about starting a family together. It was just never planned that it would happen so early into our marriage. They were scared about having a child so early. I did my best to assuage those fears by reassuring them, but always giving the option for them to have an out if they wanted it. There was never the expectation put upon them that they needed to have a child with me.
Yeah, this is... Do you want to go first?
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say this is tough. I don't want to say that it makes me like change my mind or anything, but like it definitely adds a lot more to it because it's sometimes even when things are not the right way to handle things, sometimes it's what like needs to happen in order to get to that point. And the fact that it took, 3 years for them to finally have this conversation and that they didn't realize that their partner was having these feelings for so long. It's a really tough situation. And I get the resentment on both sides because there is this pressure and society doesn't help either. Like they are constantly ingraining in all of us that there's this like way and there's this path that we should follow. And so I think that it's as much as at first that does, and it still is not the right way to go about things, but it ended up like resulting in them being able to find a resolution that meant that they shouldn't be together. So I don't know if that's what needed to happen, if it could have been happen in a better way, but it got to the point that they needed to be.
But honestly, like I've flip-flopped the situations and like I still, to me, it doesn't matter. Like I stay true to my opinion on this one.
Yeah, I agree.
I think played out both scenarios. Like naturally, I've played out both scenarios where it's OP's a male and I've played out a scenario where OP's a female. And my opinion does not change.
Yeah, I don't think mine does either. And I, looking at this story and the Halloween one we had,
yeah,
they feel identical to me.
Really?
they feel very identical. And I did kind of go back and listen to the Halloween one after, and I was like, I wonder if the wife and the child bearer in that story didn't want a child and was kind of forced to have a child, and the dad.
I don't know. I think that's kind of a leap.
It could be a leap, but in this situation, like this person is feeling very resentful for having a child. So you just wonder, like, obviously these stories have so much more to unpack than what we're presented.
Yeah.
But it is interesting. I will just say, so the genders in this one, they do identify them up front. This was a hard one to ungender.
Yeah.
So the person writing all of this is a 30-year-old male, and the wife is Sam, who is a 29-year-old female.
Yeah.
The friend is Matt, who's a 33-year-old male.
So was the baby calling Matt a dad or a mom?
Dad.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's not the same title that would replace.
Yeah.
They should share the
See,
title.
did you picture it as a replacement title?
I wasn't really sure, to be honest.
I was replaced. No matter what.
You figured it was the same title?
I figured it was same. Like,
yeah.
Whether it was
Which
dad or
would
mom.
make sense why it was so triggering and so jarring.
Like, it's still, I get it, but at the same time, it's like, I wouldn't be as triggered. I'd be like, all right, you want to give up that title? It's on you, big dog. But like, I'm my mom. Like, there's only one of me.
That is true.
Yeah, like, okay, weird flex.
That
like,
is
go off then.
very true.
Yeah.
Also, coming from an OT standpoint, I guess like you could look at this too. For me, I take things like very personally. So for me, I'm like, no, I get it. Like, he's treating the friend as like a surrogate parent.
But why do you say surrogate? Because when I think of that, I think of like someone who carried the baby.
I think surrogate is more of like a fill-in, or like you could replace surrogate as like an adoptive parent or like a standby parent or a fill-in parent.
Yeah.
And I think based on everything that this person is doing with their friend, it just seems like they couldn't find a partner in their wife, their spouse.
Absolutely.
And so they replaced it with their friend.
Right.
They needed that emotional support, that physical support, that help with their child, and they didn't have a partner.
Yeah.
So they used their friend.
Right.
That's what I'm more upset with versus like, hey, you waited 3 years to have this conversation with your partner, which you could have addressed this back in year 1 and addressed their postpartum depression and maybe kept your family together.
But hold on. We don't know there's postpartum depression. There's speculation of it.
Yeah.
But we don't know that there is.
No, and because they never sought a specific diagnosis.
And I think it's safe to assume that there could be.
True.
But we can't be certain, one. And then two, I'm putting myself now in the shoes of the woman, Sam, the mother.
Mm-hmm.
I said on this last episode, I don't feel very maternal naturally. Who knows, that might change one day. But right now, I don't. And so I put myself in her position. And I think it kind of reminds me of the story with the couple that conceived by accident with a condom being poked in the hole. It's like the baby's here. So Sam probably didn't want to be like, hey, by the way, I regret this baby. She probably was trying her hardest
herself, being like,
to make it work.
Yeah.
And so you
didn't want to say something.
You can look at it from the perspective of she waited 3 years to have this conversation, or you could look at it from her perspective of like, she's been fighting this for 3 years and hoping that she never had to have this conversation because she was hoping that one day she would accept it and embrace it.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it. And it's easier for me to see it from that lens as a perspective of someone who fears that I may not connect with a baby.
Yeah.
Even if it's mine. So,
well, and maybe that's why they're so upset.
Yeah,
like,
correct.
It's like that just like almost solidifies like
an insecurity
I'm not going to have that relationship, and that it's highlighting the insecurity that, hey, I can't bond with my kid.
Yeah.
I don't know how to bond with my kid. I don't feel that instant love.
Yeah.
So
that's not an easy thing to say. And I'm not discounting what you're saying.
That's hard to admit.
Yeah. It's easier for me to put myself in those shoes because I can see myself.
Yeah, you can relate to it really easily.
In a way. I'm obviously not a mom, but
I honestly, like, this, with all that we've been given, I don't think that either of them are like, neither of them were being shitty. Like, they just were really not like supposed to be together, and they were trying to make it work as much as they could.
Everyone's just trying to live a fucking life. Like, we all have it really hard. And so like the guy in this scenario, but like they were really just trying to, like, by the sounds of it, they were just trying to keep afloat. They were just trying to keep their head above water.
Right.
And like, they turned to a friend, which amazing that they had that friend. I just hope that, like, for everyone's sake involved, like, and same with the Halloween story. Like, I hope that this is a wake-up call. I hope that the moms in both stories get the help they need and can maybe bond with their kid. I will just say, like, OT perspective here, and I think I was trying to start it, but like, you could look at this too, where it's like, oh, the kid is calling the friend dad, but like, at least he's starting to talk. You could look at it as like, hey, at least he's like getting somewhere. But I will just say, like, if your child, like, make sure you are like paying attention to those milestones for your kiddos, because you could very, very, very easily qualify for free services like OT and speech therapy. And so for me, I read this and I'm like, there's no mention of speech therapy for this kid, but he should probably have speech therapy. So like, if your kid's not talking, have your pediatrician write you a prescription for an evaluation. Like, it is easy to get a lot of times. And there's so many, like, even if you don't have insurance, like there's CHIP, there's like childhood insurance that's covered by the government. Like, there are ways to get services. So try to keep up on like milestones and where your kids are at and seek out those services, because early intervention is key for kids.
Yeah. And what I will say too to that is that this couple, or any couple in this particular situation, should also be a little bit more mindful of their child's development, because if they are going to proceed with a separation and a divorce, that's probably going to impact the child's development.
Absolutely.
Even more so if they're already having some type of struggle. So something to keep in mind. But it's interesting, this story, like, you know, for me, my takeaway on it is like, this is why it's so important to have these conversations up front about kids. Yeah. And it sucks because you said this earlier, Lauren, is like, society does place a certain type of pressure on, I'm just going to speak from the perspective of a woman, like women, to have kids and to be maternal and to want kids. And like, I got asked this question literally today. Do you want kids? And it's a hard question to answer sometimes.
I get asked this once a week.
Well, mine was from somebody who was like interested in dating me. So it's like an even harder question, because I'm like, this is like a barrier to entry for some people. So you're like, what's the wrong answer? What's the right answer? Society tells me the right answer is yes, I want kids, of course. But like, you know, there's pressure. And then you, in this case, you sometimes feel pressure to say yes, and you have the child. And now here you are 3 years later, not connecting with it because you truthfully didn't want to have kids in the first place.
I had a coworker once, and he had been with his girlfriend for, what was it, like 7 to 8 years? I think he said 8 years. And I was asking him, it's just like, oh, like, you know, do you guys think do you think you're gonna move forward? Move forward with the relationship? Grow your family?
I
know. I don't even remember what I said. I said something like, because, okay, this is what it was. We had a coworker who just proposed to his girlfriend, and then they were talking about like proposals and engagements, and the girls were like talking about like rings or whatever. And then he like started talking about his girlfriend. I was like, oh, are you like thinking about it too? And he basically said, no, absolutely not. I asked why, and he was like, well, I want kids. I absolutely want kids. You remember this. I told you this. Maybe you don't remember. But I remember telling you this, and I remember like your reaction to it. But anyway, he was like, I want kids, and she doesn't. And
why were they still together?
That was my point. And
what the fuck is the point?
And that's why I remember your response.
What was my reaction?
Your response was just like, well, it's like, you know, he's wasting time. If he wants to have kids, there's a time limit. You know, guys get it a lot longer than like females, but like at the same time, I don't know why he's continues like wasting his time. Like if that's what his end game is, and she is hardcore, like no children ever. But he kept thinking, well, like maybe she'll change her mind eventually.
People that are like dead set on being child free don't change their mind.
Yeah. Or they do.
And then they're resentful.
And you're here.
Yeah, and then you're here.
This comes up so much, like whether that's Reddit, but like we've had some on my dad's podcast, Father Knows. I keep talking about it. It's come up a lot where this person like married her partner, got married. And the guy agreed, I think, before they got married, like, yeah, I'll have one kid. Like at least one.
What happens if you have twins?
Like that's why people don't make a bargain you can't even uphold. Like that's
triplets.
Just, octuplets. Yeah. Kate plus 8.
Kid. Octuplets.
You just never know.
One pregnancy.
So they were now married, and the guy was like, I don't want kids. The state of the world, How can you? Which is fair. Like a lot of people,
It's scary.
A lot of people do think like that, especially, you know, climate change. And is there going to be a world if I have a kid? What are they going to be
Is there
left
going to
with?
be fresh water?
Water wars?
Are they going to have to fight for
Dude,
water?
The water war is like, that trips me up. It's so scary. But I think it's like, if you already know what you want for yourself, like there's going to be a person out there that wants the same thing.
Yeah.
Kids, no kids, adoption, surrogacy.
We're like the most in sync.
That's so in sync.
Ever. We sounded identical too.
It did.
It felt like those.
Julia Fox. What?
No, I was gonna say something so.
It did sound like her.
Someone commented saying I sounded like Julia Fox. I wanted to literally.
I don't know who that is actually.
What?
Okay. Anyway, what were you saying?
Moving along.
Wait, should I know who that is?
I mean, I feel like
like, is she like A-list like actress or like TikTok famous?
She's blowing up on TikTok, I would say.
Okay. You guys know I don't go on
not
TikTok
A-list.
often.
I'll send you a good TikTok of hers. Okay.